Okay, we're in Parak Mem Gimel, page 122 on top, 228 at the bottom. And now the Rebbe started explaining in Parak Mem Gimel, he started quoting the Gemara says, if there's no fear, there's no wisdom. If there's no wisdom, there's no fear. So now the Rebbe started explaining there's two levels of fear. There's Yirat Tata, the lower level of fear, which comes from an intellectual understanding of godliness. It's called lower because if the fear of, and again, the fear, I'm using the word awe of Hashem, it's not fear. Technically, the English translation would be fear. But fear doesn't mean, I'm afraid somebody's going to beat me up and some lightning is going to come down and kill me, God forbid, or something like that. When we use the word fear, when it comes to Hashem, it means really awe and respect. So he says an intellectual meditation that creates a awe and a fear of Hashem, that's called a lower level of fear. Why is that called a lower level? Because it's coming from your limited intelligence. Your intellect stimulates the fear, but our intellect is limited, so the fear is limited. Then he says, okay, then he went into the higher level of fear and awe, which is called the embarrassment, which is a much deeper level. That is, and the last thing he was explaining was, I say just tells him, ein chochma ein yira. That level must have a prerequisite of chochma. And he says, the Gemara says, Ezel chacham, we mentioned. In Pirkei Avos it says, who is a chacham? Who is a person worthy of being praised? One who learns, is willing to learn from everybody. But another Gemara in Talmud says, Ezel chacham harayas hanayla. Simply it means who is a wise person? One who sees the future, what the outcome of their actions will be. But here the Alter Rebbe is defining it. What does the word noilad mean? Who is a wise person? One who sees the creation of the world, the way Hashem is constantly recreating the world, meaning when he looks at the world, he doesn't see world. His gift from above makes him understand that the world is really Hashem. It's all Hashem. Einaid Mulvad is nothing but God. And this is where we're up to now. So therefore, we're going to start. Okay, 3 lines from the end of the page. So he says that the person realizes that the whole world, the whole universe is completely submitted to Hashem, nullified to Hashem, bottled to Hashem, and so on. He should not remove himself from this general rule that everything is Hashem. Meaning, shegam gufe, even the body of a person, the person has to come to the realization that reality is my body, my ruach, my nefesh, ruach, neshama, 3 lower levels of the soul. The Talim, the Metzias are completely nullified in their existence. Bidvar Hashem, in the word of Hashem. V'diburi Yisborich, and the word of Hashem, which is miyuchad b'machshavtei, like he spoke before in the 20th and 21st chapter, Barichas. Okay? What did he say? He's going to say now, okay, on top of the page. In Parak Chav, the Alter Rebbe explained how the world is really non-existent entity. And we mentioned this many times because it's so fundamental. Here the Alter Rebbe is explaining it again. Hashem created the universe. Bidvar Hashem, one word, Bidvar Hashem, Shamayim Nasu. God made everything with one word. In other words, we know there are 10 utterances, but the Gemara says that when Hashem said, the Medrash says, Hashem said, Bereshis bara Elokim, the first utterance, that created the whole universe, everything. The concurrent days, Hashem just put everything in place. Like on Wednesday, the sun and the moon and the stars were created Sunday, Thursday. As a Shemayim Vesorot, everything was created. When did God, so to speak, hang up the sun in the sky and the moon in the sky and the stars? That was Wednesday. But everything was created the first day. So now the Rebbe explained, he's going to say it again now. very briefly. The whole world was created with one word. One word compared to our power of speech is 1 to infinite. How much more so to our thought? So it's more nothing. To our emotions, to our intellect, everything. So he says like this. The one word from Hashem's mouth, if by us in the nefesh, he said, by us, by people, one word is nothing compared to the power of speech. So how much more so is this one word that Hashem created heaven and earth? How much more so is it nothing compared to Hashem himself? This is what the pasuk says. Hashem. Behold, the fear of Hashem. That's Chachma. Chachma represents bittul. Koachma. Chachma represents a spark. So the Rebbe is explaining over here, and soon he's going to go in that just like there's 2 levels of fear, an intellectual stimulated fear and a gift from above. Now, there have been a few lines are going to start explaining the same thing as in love. There's a love that we create, and there's a love that Hashem gives us, that we have as an inheritance. And he says, how can we get this level of fear? How can we reach it and attain it? It's only only through. How can we reach this higher level of fear? How do we come to the higher level of fear? He says only by observance of Torah mitzvahs through the lower level of fear, and that's what it says. In other words, it begins from yira. In fact, there's a pasuk. Many people say it in davening. We don't. Reish is chachma, yiras Hashem. The beginning of chachma is the fear of Hashem. So in other words, like this. There's an intellectual fear that intellect stimulates. In the mightiness of Hashem, power of Hashem, that creates a fear of Hashem. That fear of Hashem is a lower level of fear. Again, it was created by your intellect. So that creates a chachma, that creates an understanding, a little bit of Hashem. Then it's taken a step further. It means chachma and yira. Through that level of chachma, you come to a higher level of fear. Not a fear of punishment, not a fear that, I don't want to rebel against Hashem. It's just a fear that everything's Hashem. And we're all part of Hashem. And therefore, how can I do anything wrong? We're all part of Hashem. But in order to come to this level of fear, Dr. Rebbe says, that's only through the observance of Torah mitzvahs. Why is that? Why can I have a fear of Hashem without observance of Torah mitzvahs? So it's a very simple concept. Hashem is infinite. Our level of fear is finite because it's intellectually stimulated. So it's really a limited fear of Hashem. How can a person have fear of an infinite God? Our minds don't even fathom it. We don't even get it. We have a problem with limited understanding of fear of Hashem. Like Rabbi Ahmed Zakeh said on his deathbed, fear God like you fear a king. So the Rebbe is saying, by doing Torah mitzvahs, that is a connection with Hashem. You are bound automatically. You do a mitzvah. That mitzvah means binding and connection. You do one mitzvah, you're automatically hooked. You're automatically connected and bound to Hashem. Now that you're connected, you can reach a much deeper level of fear and love and understanding of Hashem than you would without that connection to the infinite. Because we're only finite. We can't connect to infinite. But when Hashem gives us a mitzvah, like Dr. Rebbe said in the recent chitas not long ago in Tanya, Dr. Rebbe says that when a person does a mitzvah, which Hashem commanded us to do, and he gives the mashal, there is an unbelievable, powerful king. that has absolutely nothing to do with peasants. And yet one day the king calls in a peasant and says, I want you to do this for me. For whatever reason, the king calls him in and says, hey, do this for me. And the peasant does it. There is an automatic bond and connection between the peasant and the king, because the king gave him the connection and the person accepted the connection. When a person does Torah mitzvahs, that connects them to Hashem. Once they're connected to the infinite Hashem, then their fear is different, their love is different, everything is different. And that's what we said many, many times. But the Rebbe's opinion and Shita in talking to people about Yiddishkeit, like we know from the Rebbe's Mitzvah. What was the Rebbe's Mitzvah? Not to sit down and have a philosophical discussion with the person, because you're not going to get anywhere. It's limited and limited. The Rebbe's opinion is you meet a Jew, you put tefillin on him. You meet a woman, give her Shabbos candles. You do this, put a mezuzah, whatever it is. What happens when you do those mitzvahs? You're bound, you're connected, you're tied. So you already have a connection above and beyond your intellectual connection. Intellectual connection is limited. But when a person does something Hashem tells them to do, and they do it, there is automatically a bond between Hashem and the Jew in a way that they're connected. So that's why he's saying this can only come through the love of Torah mitzvahs. Then he says, just like there isn't fear, there's also two levels. And these two levels, by the way, we use those wording in davening. He calls it Ava Rabba and Avas Olam. Ava Rabba means a very great level of love, great love, and Avas Olam simply means eternal love. It means forever. But the Alter Rebbe is going to explain a little bit different. Avas Olam, the Alter Rebbe is going to start with Ava Rabba, but Avas Olam means a love of Hashem that comes from understanding world. Again, intellect stimulates love. Avas Olam means when a Jew thinks about how great God is, how God Hashem gives us everything we need. We're alive, and therefore it demands that I should love him. He's everything. But again, that is a worldly level of love that comes from intellectual stimulation, which is limited. Ava Rabba, which he calls great love, that's a gift from above. Just like in fear, in awe, Yirat Tata is a lower level of fear that comes through understanding the greatness of Hashem. So it's limited based on your understanding. The same thing Avas Olam is also. So he says like this: Ava Rabba, he goes first the higher level. Ava Rabba, this tremendously great level of fear. The Ava B'Tanugim is what's called love of enjoyment. Meaning, Shalheves Ha'ela Me'aleha, that's the flame that goes up by itself. But Uba Milmaila, and it's a gift, actually a gift from above, B'Bchinas Matana, as a gift, Lemishu Sholim B'Yira, to a person who's complete in fear. In other words, when a person stimulates fear, which is, by the way, lower than love, because you have Chesed and Gvura, right? Chesed is higher than Gvura. Chesed is love, and Gvura is fear. So love is higher than fear. But so he says, when a person has this fear of Hashem, especially the higher level of fear, and Hashem sees the person is really, really trying, as the expression goes, God helps those who help themselves. Hashem gives the person a gift from above of this tremendous Ava Hashem. And he says like this, like the Gemara says, Darka shel ish, by shidduchim, it's the man looking for the woman. That's a Gemara. The Gemara says, Darka shel ish is the way of a man lachzar achad isha, to go out to go after the woman, to search for the woman. Okay, this is the Gemara in Kedushin, and he says like this. So the man goes after the woman. He says it like this. Male is ahava, and female is fear. Like he says. Because ahava is called ish v'zachar, male. Like it says, we say in that in Tilim, zachar, we say in davening also. Zachar chastei ve'emunasi. Zachar literally means remember, right? Zachar, to remember. Zachar chastei, the way it's pronounced, literally means remember your chesed. But Chassidus says the word zachar, zayin chafresh, is zachar male. So zachar chastei means, the way Chassidus interprets it, chesed is zachar, is masculine. The Isha Yiras Hashem, and what do we say in Eishes Chayil? Isha Yiras Hashem Mitasala. It's very interesting. By a male, it says Zachar Chazdei, meaning Zachar male is Chazdei Chesed. And in what we say Friday night in Eishes Chayil, Isha Yiras Hashem, a woman is primarily fear of Hashem. So what does it mean? When the Gemara says the way of a man is to go after the woman, now the Rebbe says what the Gemara means in Chassidic language. When you have the woman fearing Hashem, Isha Yira, woman represents fear of Hashem, then the man goes to her, meaning Hashem gives you a gift of Ava from above, which is a much greater level of Ava than Ava, love that comes from meditating into the world. This is Ava Rabba. This is an infinite level of love. But a person can only reach that level as a gift from above. Like you said, when a person has complete level of fear, Hashem gives him a gift. Ubali kadima sayira. Without first having awe and respect of Hashem, okay, you can't reach this level of love, of Avad Rabbah. In order to reach this gift from above, that a person loves Hashem in the highest of levels, he needs to have first Yira, first the fear of Hashem. Isha Yiras Hashem. Why? Ki avazu, this love that he's talking about of the Ava Rabba, the infinite level of love that comes as a gift from above, that comes from Atzilus. It comes from the world of Atzilus. The last Hamon, that in that world of Atzilus, there is no kitutz upirud, there is no separation, there is no breaking away from Hashem. There's only bittul of Hashem. So there is no separate. That world of Atzilus that it comes from, that is, there's no separate, there's no sundering, like he says in the English. There's no separating from Hashem. In Atzilus is a world of godliness. Bria, the next world down, by definition, Bria is Yesh Mi'ayin. We learned many times that Ramban says at the beginning of Chumash, when the Torah uses the word Bereishiz Bara, Elokim, Hashem created heaven and earth, the Ramban says the word Bara, created, in Hebrew, refers to something from nothing. Yesh Mi'ayin. Atzilus is bittul, nullification. That's why it's called Atzilus, from the word Eitzel. It's close to Hashem. It's a world where only godliness is felt. There is no evil in that world. In fact, it says in Kabbalah, in Chassidus, Atzilus is totally good. Bria is mostly good, a little bit of bad. Yitzira is mostly bad, a little bit of good. This world, Kul Rubai Kul Ira. All vast majority is evil. So Atzilus is a world of godliness. He says if a person doesn't have the level of yira, fear and awe, which means bittul, then they can't reach a level of ava that comes from a world which is completely godly. So that's ava rabba, the higher level of love. Ach avas olam, what is this lower level of avas olam? Haba me'atvuna v'das. That comes again, like just like yira tata, the lower level of awe and fear comes from meditating into the greatness of Hashem. So the same thing, the lower level of ava, which is called avas olam, mean it comes from a level of godliness that he looks at the world and he says, look at this universe. And everything in the universe has its like we said last time, every drop of water, every kernel of sand, every blade of grass has its own unique power of Hashem in it. And this is the universe. So then that's called Avaselim. So then you create a level of love, but again, because it's coming from your meditation, it's limited. It can't be an Atzilus. The gift of Atzilus is when Hashem sees the person has bittul. He's working hard in the realization that nothing but Hashem exists. Einod Mulvade. Einod Mulvade, like Dr. Rebbe explains in Shai Yichud V'Amunah, does not mean there's no other God. It says, we say it every day in Elena, it's a pasuk in Chumash, we say 3 times a day in Elena. It's a pasuk in Chumash. You should know today. You should put to your place to your heart. The God is God. In the heaven above. In the earth below. Without Tanya, and Dr. Rabbi asked, do I need a pasuk to tell me there's no other God? By definition, you can't have 2 gods. If God is omnipresent, omniscient, you can't have 2 gods. So the Rebbe said, why is the pasuk teaching me ein oid? Simply, which means there is no other God. You should know God is God in the heaven above, the earth below. Ein oid simply means there's no other God. Why don't the pasuk tell me that? So the Rebbe explains about Shayach V'Amunah, that's not what the pasuk means. It doesn't mean ein oid, there is no other God. Ein oid means there's nothing but God. And the Gemara says, the Rebbe says, oid, the word oid, and ein oid, nothing more. The Gemara also means Yehuda va'id l'kra. Why do I need Yehuda if there's a pasuk? So oid over there means even secondary. In Gemara language, the word oid means secondary. In fact, it's interesting. We daven right after Ashrei. We read from Tillim, Pesukah de Zimra. We say, Hallelujah li nafshi es Hashem. My soul is praising Hashem. Hallelujah Hashem b'chayoy. I will praise Hashem with my life, meaning my soul. Azamra lelekai ba'oidi. I will sing praise to Hashem ba'oidi. What does ba'oidi mean? Look in the commentators that said it. It means my body. Why is the body called oid? Because oid means secondary. Not only am I praising Hashem with my neshama, I'm even praising God with what's secondary. Ein oid, the Rebbe says, not only there's nothing else but Hashem, there's not even secondary. There's nothing but Hashem. That level is still, because you're doing it through intellectual understanding, it's still limited. When a person comes to that level of yira, and then he comes to the level of ab, and Hashem sees you're really trying hard, Hashem gives us a gift from above, what's called Ava Selim. And that level comes from Atzilus. Mamali Kolam, the way Hashem permeates the world. The Sefer Kolam encompasses the world. And nothing is in comparison to Hashem, nothing else exists. Or kabitl, even like the bitl of one word in the soul, like you said before, compared to the power of the soul itself. And he said, in the thought, when a person meditates into that level, that nothing exists in the world but Hashem. In other words, it's not there's competition, but the competition is weak. Einoid means there is nothing but Hashem. It's all Hashem. This is a table, and this is a chair, and this is a room, and this is a car, and this is food, and this is garbage, and this is manure, and this is all these things. It's all an extension of Hashem. And that's why, just go back to the halacha part of today. The person in serving Hashem has to realize world is an extension of Hashem, and therefore the avodah of a Jew is to show it. What's the role of the Jew? To show that the world is really godly. Now, how do we show it? When you do a mitzvah, or you meditate into loving Hashem and fearing Hashem, the two different levels of fear and love, and you show that whatever I do in my life is primarily because I'm serving Hashem. You can go to the gym, but if I'm going to the gym to be healthy, why do I want to be healthy? Because I want to serve Hashem. So going to the gym is a form of serving Hashem. Eating, drinking, sleeping, whatever it may be. Because I'm doing it, what is the underlying factor, the underlying purpose of all this? To serve Hashem. So therefore, everything I'm doing becomes holy. Because Einoid Mulvade. The reality is, why did Hashem create a gym? Because people have to be healthy, to be able to function properly like a Jew. So Hashem created a gym. What's the purpose? It says, the mission of this at the end says, everything Hashem created in the world, He created for His glory. What do you mean with His glory? It's not an ego trip. Oh, look how great I am. What the Mishnah means, whatever Hashem created in the world, He created that we should glorify Hashem by using that to show it's really all Hashem. That's what it's all about. Okay, and again, tonight's class is sponsored by Yehudas Greenberg for fathers, Yorted, Rabbi Chil Issa Ben Tuvia. The Yorted is this Friday, Hey Kislev, Nishom Shirav and Aliyah. Mitzvah, again, Monday night there's no class, but the Mitzvah Wednesday night there will be a class. Until then, everybody have a great Shabbos. Don't forget, tonight we started saying the same Talmud. So if you're davening, because if you don't say it, you got to repeat it. Have a great night, everybody, and a great week.